The Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. Read by Michelle Ingalls. March 13th. Jesus forgives a man and heals him. Matthew 9, 5 through 6. Now, some of the scribes who heard Jesus tell the sick man that his sins were forgiven said he blasphemed God in attempting to forgive sins. But Jesus, reading their thoughts and knowing what was in their minds, asked them if it were easier to forgive or to heal. For whether is easier to say, thy sins be forgiven thee, or to say, arise and walk. In order to prove this position, he healed the man, saying, arise, take up thy bed, and go into thine house. This incident has to do with a great psychological law. If one labors under a great burden of past mistakes, he devitalizes his body. And if the condemnation is great enough, it might render the body incapable of moving. Jesus, seeing that the sick man was laboring under a load of condemnation, told him that his sins were forgiven. This removed the weight from the man's consciousness, making it possible for him to receive the healing word. Would Jesus have forgiven the man if he had thought that God held anything against him? Certainly not. He knew that the eternal heart is one of love, and that God forgives from the foundation of the universe. Indeed, he knew that the divine mind is too pure to behold evil and knows nothing about sin. God knows no evil. Why would it disturb anyone to be told that God knows nothing of his sin, nothing of his want, nothing of his lack of any kind? The tragedy would be if God did know. If God knew sin, he would be a sinner, for what the infinite mind knows must be. Sin or mistake are outside the province of reality. Jesus knew this. He also knew that while man labors under the sense of condemnation, the burden of his thoughts weighs him to the dust. Being able to read thought, he knew just what step to take in relieving the burden of this man's mind before telling him to arise and walk. We shall do well to remember this lesson. How often we condemn when we should forgive. How often censure when we might praise. What untold grief of heart might be relieved by the words of cheer and forgiveness, especially should this lesson be remembered in the training of children, for they so readily respond to the thought of others. Remembering that the Spirit holds no evil towards man and that God is love, we should emulate this divine lesson and forgive all, that our hearts may be free from the burden of our own condemnation.